Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the home spun yak. How's it going? I feel like I haven't introduced it this way in a while. How's it going, Mr. Hatley?
Oh, well, now that you introduced it in that way, it's going terrible. No, it's been pretty good. Uh, Shout out to Stuart Fisher, got married over the
Stuart
weekend.
Fisher. All
All
right.
right,
All
he's a married
right.
man,
Married
ladies.
man.
Sorry.
Off the market, folks. Gentlemen, ladies,
Gentlemen,
hands
ladies,
off.
everything in between.
Ladies, hands off.
So that's what we celebrated this past weekend, and now we're back to reality. And Stewart is in the Maldives. No, I
The-
don't know. He's not doing a honeymoon until a few weeks from now. But
Once
it will
COVID
be
is over.
it will be a tropical paradise. Yeah, once he gets his COVID passport.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Is that a thing? Is that something he's actually going to have to do? I'm assuming.
I don't think so.
Okay.
He didn't mention that. I took it to there. I took it to that
Okay.
level.
you,
Uh,
you took it to the Alex Jones conspiracy theory level immediately,
yeah.
just out the gate.
Yep. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely been rumors of COVID passports. I don't think anything
Yeah.
substantial yet, but I would not shock me
I
if
think
they
that's
if
true
they
in
went.
Europe, though. In Americans aren't
Oh
allowed
yeah,
to go over there unless they show that they've been vaccinated.
yeah. I guess that's true. I guess that is true.
Yeah.
I just I think the EU is still deciding on a specific date, or maybe they have already, like midsummer to for people to travel into the EU.
Yeah, I don't
But
know.
I think they're doing a lot worse than we are as far as getting everybody vaccinated.
Yeah. Yeah, I was talking to my boss and my lab tech, or the lab tech in our lab, who is Japanese, and they were talking about how in Japan, and just so we're clear, I'm well aware that Japan is not in Europe, but
Okay,
it's right
I
next
was
to France.
not. I was not aware. But proceed.
But in Japan, they have a vaccination of 0.2% or something like that. Like, that's how much of the population they vaccinated because
Hmm.
they can't get access to any of the vaccines. So they talked to the
Wow.
Pfizer CEO, and he's like, "Yeah, we'll get you the vaccines," and it still hasn't happened. So
Wow.
yeah, Japan's far, far behind.
That's kind of crazy. I would
Yeah,
have
and you,
thought they would have been a lot better on that, but
yeah, you'd
I
think.
guess I don't know what their infection rate was like based on how they are, but did he mention that?
No, although I mean, they have the Olympics coming up this summer, so
Yeah, that's
so
true.
how are they going to do that? How are they going to pull that off?
Oh
Uh,
man,
I
I
don't know.
forgot about that.
United States is at 50% vaccination right now. With 50% of the population has at least gotten one dose of the vaccine. So
Wow.
eventually, once we hit about 70-80%, we'll start. They'll press the button and everybody will turn into a cyborg.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess I don't know. I don't know all the details, but um, I guess the reason why we were able to do it so quickly and have such a high rate of vaccination to this point,
Because of the Democrats.
well, no, because of Trump. No, I
Now
think
you get your conservative ass out of here now. Okay, anyway.
I think they said that they reached out to all the pharmaceutical companies and saying that they would um, stimulate them with $1 billion for funding and logistics of getting the vaccine across the country,
Mm.
whereas the EU was like trying to negotiate like pricing with different pharmaceutical companies where we just said this is the rate that you'll get. So, you know, first guy wins, and or we'll take whoever basically.
Yeah.
And luckily, it happened pretty quickly. And that's something that, yeah, I just until recently just assumed that we were like, because our rate of COVID was so much higher than the rest of the world. I just assumed, like, with people skeptical about the vaccine and
Yeah.
just a bunch of different factors, I just assumed that we would be pretty poor on, vaccination percentage, whereas in fact, we're probably the best in the world right now, which
Yeah,
kind of shocked me.
we have to be up there until China and Russia release their
Well,
numbers. They're
China,
like, we are at
yeah,
100% vaccination. Z-
we're fine.
the Americans aren't even close to us.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I guess
just
you never
believe
know
us.
numbers.
Believe our
Yeah.
numbers. Yeah. Yeah, you're right, though. Although, to your point, which I think is actually right, that there is a lot of vaccine skepticism. I was talking
Hmm.
to my boss, and he took his wife to a mass vaccination site, um, and it was empty, completely empty. They just strolled in, and she got her shot, and his son got his shot, and they just walked out. But the whole time, this is like a massive field, and uh, just no one was there. So, I mean, even I
Huh.
think NPR even talked about it, right? Like, there's a lot of appointments that are going unfilled. So
Yeah.
we got the vaccines, but people aren't going to go get their shots. So,
Now that it's fully open and like easy to
yeah,
get an appointment
right,
now,
yeah.
it's
It's
just a
not
lot
cool
going to
anymore.
waste. Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
so
We
they
got
got to
in
make
when
it.
it was still cool.
Yeah, they gotta limit it somehow.
Wow.
Be like you get a free Pokemon card or something with it, and then I'll be like,
I'm
damn
sure
it,
that would actually work.
I need to get another one.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of skepticism about it and just a lot of, well, it's not a reality here yet, but I see that it could be is the potential of like a COVID passport. Like you have to
Mm,
update your app on your phone or a passport or something. And yeah, I just don't really know fully how I feel about that.
yeah, me neither.
Because on the one hand, if I'm going into if I'm going to France, if I'm going to Italy, and they're like, right as of now, like if you come into the country, you have to prove that you were vaccinated, essentially. And I mean, I get that. Definitely, it's each country can decide, how to best protect itself in a multitude of ways. But I don't know. I think if it becomes a thing, even temporary in language, I think it'll just progress to a permanent thing. Which I don't know. It's just kind of like it's just holding the freedom of travel against you, kind of just saying like, do you wanna go places? Well, you better get a shot if you want to go places, okay? Yes, father. And I don't know, just the idea that obviously you want to be vaccinated and safe from any viruses, but the overall idea that the government knows what's best for you specifically is laughable.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. It's I kind of like you. I haven't put a whole lot of thought into it, and it's a constant struggle to kind of think of like at what point are your rights being infringed on. But then on the other hand, you know the science of it. You know that technically it's good, it's the right thing, but it's like I also I'm a huge proponent of having freedoms and whatnot, and I know a lot of
Hmm.
people are like, well, you shouldn't have freedoms or do stupid things, that hurt others. It's just like, well, I mean, you can use that argument for a lot of things,
Yeah.
and ends up becoming a slippery slope. So I totally get the hesitancy in that regard, and
Hmm.
I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with the COVID passport. I think right now I would prefer just not have that. I think another thing is too, like, coronavirus is eventually just going to be something like the flu. If I mean potentially if we have to take it every year, get a shot. I can tell you I'm not going to get it every year. I don't even get the flu shot every year. Everybody keeps telling
No.
me, and I get it every once in a while, and a lot of that is because there's a lot of crossover between flu shots and stuff like that. So, if you get the flu or if you get coronavirus after those initial shots, you're going to have some protection for a long time, more than a year. It's just so to me, it was always a convenience thing for me that I just didn't want to like set up my appointment to go get my flu shot and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I got like a billion other things that are going through my head that I have to worry about. The flu shot is not one of them.
Yeah.
So you know, I'm not too. I know the coronavirus thing right now is huge, and it's really important and whatnot. But eventually, it's truly just going to be another one of those viruses that's just out there. It's not like
Yeah.
coronaviruses themselves are like new. I mean, they've been around for
Mm-hmm.
a long time. So yeah, I'm not too worried about it. But actually, on that topic, Baltimore still has this full-time mask mandate. So even if you're outside, even if you're by
Mm-hmm.
yourself, you're supposed to be wearing your mask. Obviously, not very many people do that where they're outside. Although actually a surprising amount still do, which is pretty phenomenal.
Yeah.
But
Oh yeah.
uh,
And will continue to do.
yeah, and will continue to do right. But it was funny because the mayor of Baltimore, who I kind of like, I mean, he's a younger guy. I think he's like in his 30s, and he seems like he's got a good head on his shoulders in general. He was asked at the end of his press conference or something, are you going to be lifting the outdoor mask mandate? Because like, what's the point, right? And he just walked off the stage. He didn't even
Wow.
answer it, which is
So dumb.
yeah, it is. Which is funny because the CDC just released today the new guidelines for outdoor mask, and they said you don't have to wear a mask, especially if you're vaccinated. But even unvaccinated people don't necessarily have to wear a mask unless they're with a group of people or whatever. So
Right.
something that makes a lot more sense, and so now, like the CDC is giving this recommendation, but Baltimore City is still technically has this law or not law, whatever you want to call it, mandate, whatever you want to
Mandate.
call it,
Yeah.
that we still have to wear our masks when we're outside at all times. So
Yeah.
it's kind of ridiculous. I knew you'd probably appreciate it because you're big like into
I'm a
wearing
heavy
masks.
outside mask
Yeah,
guy.
yeah.
Yeah.
You wear
I
three
have been for,
layers.
yeah, I have been for a while, even before COVID,
Yeah.
you know, big
Yeah.
mask guy. No, I mean, I was outside today and I saw many, many people who walked by me and put their mask on, and I looked back and they took it off as I was out of range.
Sure.
And it's just like, you saved yourself, man. That one act saved your life and maybe millions of others. So thank you. I was irresponsible.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just there's no there seems to be no evidence, but I wonder why
There isn't.
people are so reluctant to move on from that, at least in the outside, you know. It's just people have just terrified themselves and have just I don't know, it's again going back to just the government, not knowing what's best for people and how people just will blindly follow whatever people like Fauci or anybody says. And, obviously there's good CDC guidelines in place and people are trying to do the right thing as this thing had evolved initially and nobody knew exactly. But now that we know the science, we know what's going on, we've got vaccines 50%. Um, I don't know. You just see how big of an impact people's words are that are in government that you know still have such a tight grip on people after certain things have been cleared and verified
Hmm.
that something like the COVID passport I could see going through easily, because people are like, oh, it'll help us, it will blah blah blah, and then just do it, and it's like, it's not really that big of a deal. Like, I just printed out a thing or got a stamp or just opened my app. But I just feel like we're going down a slippery slope of like fractions of percentages of freedoms being taken away so slowly and over such a long period of time that by the time you realize like we're living in a socialist or dictatorship, not saying it's going to get to that, but by the time it's like, wow, we have strayed pretty far from 10 years ago or whatever it was. It's too late to go back on it because now everybody's so accustomed to it. And what are you going to do about it? Nothing. It's just like the Super League. I mean, it's inevitable, I feel. And the owners are like the government. They just,
Yeah.
this is what's best for you in the end. You might not like it now, but you'll get over it and move on, and we'll benefit from your blind submission.
That's a good transition, actually. Can you give us an update on what happened with the Super League?
Super League crashed and burned only hours after we released our podcast. So I don't know if there's any coincidence there, but
No, it's not a coincidence.
no, I don't think so.
They listened to it. They were like, we were
They
right.
all sat
we
down. Wow, we strayed from the path.
We royally screwed up this one.
Yeah, we got this guy talking about it.
Then they released a statement, and they were like, we have always cared about the fans. The fans are our number one priority. We don't know why we did this. Money was not the reason.
Yeah, no, we thought everybody would love it. Like, we thought you guys would really love it. and until they showed up at the stadiums and tried to, like, basically burn it down. So, I mean, it's still going to have some lingering effects. The just couple of days that it was a real thing. And even when the owners put out apologies and, say it's over, like we didn't want to be in, really. Like we were just,
That's the biggest load of bullshit.
It was that guy. It was that, he made us do it.
We have parted ways with one person.
With the Super League.
John, we're having this meeting today because, you're the CFO, and we're gonna have to throw you under the bus on this one.
Well, but it's been 2 days. I mean, yeah, just
we're gonna have to They had to. I mean, they probably did have to like throw some people under the bus. Isn't there like some fans that are calling for a particular owner to step down from being the owner?
All
or something
fans
like that?
are calling for all the owners. I mean, at least in England. I can't really speak on Spain or Italy, but at least in England, it's pretty bad. Like, people showed up in the thousands, at Arsenal, at Chelsea, at Manchester United, and basically made themselves heard. And, ultimately that was the undoing of the Super League, not the threats of, you won't be in the Champions League or the World Cup. It was just, I mean, we didn't listen to the fans at all. We just blindly assumed that they'd be okay with it. And we underestimated, how big social media plays a part in all of this, and, how we're going to be perceived if we go forward with this. And even, backing out of it, people are still, furious. And the owner of Arsenal, that, I think that's the biggest one, is like they're calling for him to resign. And the owner of Spotify actually tweeted and was like, I will buy Arsenal. I've been an Arsenal fan I think he's Swedish, and he's like, I will put a bid in, like, if the guy wants to sell, like, just let me know. But they released a statement like, the Denver Sports Group will not sell. So I think it's just gonna, it fizzled out. But the owner of Real Madrid, who seemed to be the ringleader of it, said the Super League is not dead. Like it's still going to happen, but we just need to regroup and formulate a better plan, I guess, or just wait until people become ultra desperate. I don't know, but I feel like when you get fans back in the stands, um, that's when you're going to start making more money and start to make wiser business decisions to get out of debt. But I mean, who knows? Barcelona were in the worst spot of any other team by hundreds of millions in debt
Aren't they
because they just
paying
hung on to
Messi like
Messi forever. Yeah,
insane amounts? Didn't they like give
yeah,
him
and they're not
another
winning
3-year
anything.
deal or something like that?
Yeah, and they're not winning anything, and they'd rather like keep Messi there for life, just to say that this is his only club he ever played for, and yeah, basically he's a god, and he's a god because of us, and it, I don't know. I mean, him and Ronaldo are still the most popular players, and obviously that equals dollar signs worldwide. But you're trying to keep him happy when he's getting older and not the player he once was. So that's going to be detrimental to your overall team morale and performance because they know coming in, like, he's the man, even though maybe I have better stamina or I might be a better player than him in like a year. He's still going to be the center of attention.
Mm.
And, if they would have sold him like 3 or 4 years ago, I don't think they'd be I don't think they'd be hurting as bad. But yeah, Super League is done for now.
Yeah, thank goodness. I was incredibly upset by that, as you heard in the last podcast.
Yeah, yeah, you cried.
Yeah, I was, it just made me really impassioned,
Yeah,
emboldened.
yeah, I get it.
Yeah. Uh, on another note, I do have news. I published a
Caitlyn
study.
Jenner.
Ah, yeah, Caitlyn Jenner. We could talk about that too. But I published my first study with this lab. So we've been working on a paper for over a year now. Well, I've been working on this paper for over a year. They have been working on this paper for like 2 years or something like that. So it's been a long time coming, but we finally published or got accepted by the Journal of Cell Biology. And
Wow, that's awesome. When did that happen?
the week and a half
Because
ago.
I'm on the board. I didn't. I didn't hear about this.
Did not approve this.
Yeah, I'll have to see this.
So the title, in case anybody wants to read it, I'm sure you'll want to read it. It's called Parkin Independent Mitophagy via DRP1 mediated outer membrane severing and inner membrane ubiquitination.
Got it. Just writing that down.
Okay, all right. So yeah. Have you ever heard of autophagy before?
I've heard the word. I have no idea what it means.
Okay, all right. So autophagy is something that won the Nobel Prize maybe 15 years ago, something like that. I don't really remember exactly when, but it was pretty recent in terms of science terms. And essentially what it is our cells are able to consume parts of themselves. So it's like a cellular cleanup machinery. It's these vessels inside of our cells that trap things that need to be broken down, need to be destroyed into their constitutive parts. So think of like a car starts to run kind of clunky, and you can replace particular parts on it, but eventually it gets so just so old and so beat up that it's just better to just break it up for parts. That's what autophagy is. So you're breaking up these particular pieces of our cells. And So
And this happens naturally?
yeah, it happens. It happens in just all of our cells, and it does happen normally. So right
And
now,
just
our
the
cells are
discovery of that process was what won that guy the Nobel Prize.
right. Yeah, exactly. So they discovered that process,
Yeah.
right? So the original, or one of the original kind of classical pathways for how that actually occurs, so different molecules that interact to allow autophagy to occur, was through this process called Parkin-Pink mediated pathway. Parkin and Pink are two molecules. So that was the original system. That's what a lot of people, a lot of researchers have been basing their understanding of autophagy based off of that particular pathway. Now, what we did is we actually ended up discovering that there's another pathway. So we figured out a unique way by which our cells, when pink and parkin aren't present in our cells, what happens? I mean, obviously they can't just stop undergoing autophagy. So they end up using a different system, which is the system that we ended up discovering. And what ultimately happens, we specifically look at mitochondria. And so if you've got damaged mitochondria, this autophagy machine will kind of engulf the mitochondrion and destroy it and break it up into its constitutive parts and whatnot. So that's the classical understanding of autophagy. Now, in our model, what we found is that mitochondrion will accumulate a signal. Actually, more specifically, if you have a healthy mitochondrion and then we poison it with a particular drug that ends up leading to a bunch of malfunctions in that mitochondrion, what happens is that mitochondrion behaves in such a way that it will start to partition out the damaged parts of itself to like a corner of itself. And then it recruits another molecule that comes in and actually pinches it right down the middle and cuts off that damaged section of
Wow.
mitochondria. And that then gets separated from the still intact healthy mitochondria. So now you have two mitochondria, and one of them is extremely damaged, and the other one is much healthier than when it was all combined as one. So then what happens is this really damaged mitochondrion has this high level of these concentrated proteins that start to express. So you have tons of these damaged proteins, and the cell, or the mitochondrion, well, more so the cell, ends up recognizing that. And the mitochondrion will actually burst open. So it opens its outer membrane. And then that is the signal then for autophagy to come in and engulf that particular
Hmm.
mitochondrion and get rid of it. So that's this new system that we've discovered, and yeah, I mean we put tons of work into it, and it's a really complex paper. I covered it on Physionic. It took me an hour to go through 10% of the data.
Right.
So it's heavy,
Wow.
heavy molecular biology, but it's a really cool mechanism, and actually being able to see the visuals of this stuff,
Mm.
the mitochondrion behaving in certain ways was really sweet. So yeah, Journal of Cell
Are
Biology
people
finally
able to,
done.
are they going to publish it on their website, or is there an area where you can go and read it or learn about it?
Yeah, they have it. They have it listed. So if you just type in that really simple
Yeah.
title that I gave you, you'll be able to find it. Or you can just type in my name and type in the word mitophagy, which is MITO, and then phagy, PHAGY, and I'm sure it'll pop up. So yeah,
Wow,
that's
that's awesome, man.
that's the news from
And
Lake Wobegon.
potentially with this, um, you know, what could be the benefit or the result from understanding this new process? I'm sure there's multiple avenues of that. Or did you cover that at any part in your paper, or is just like here's a new process that we discovered, and basically from this we can do X or Y? Or
Yeah, that's a good question. A lot of people end up asking that specific question. Actually, when I presented it, people were asking that exact question, like, okay, well, what can we do with this, right? And it's tricky because in science you end up with these situations where you have the molecular biology or the cell biology where it's just trying to figure out the how things work. That's it. That's all you're trying
Right.
to figure out. And that's what we did. And then you take it up a step and you're like, okay, well, now let's try to figure this out in brain cells specifically. So then, maybe if
Hmm.
it gets replicated in brain cells, we see the same thing. Okay, cool. Then the next step is, okay, now let's look at animals because we can't jump from that to humans.
Right.
So then we look at animals, look at rats, mice, and then we go up to monkeys, and then we go from monkeys to humans. So there's a lot of steps that have to go into
Yeah.
place, but ultimately, I don't I don't know if this is going to end up becoming anything in terms of like clinical practice. It could, like autophagy is implicated in dementia and
Hmm.
Parkinson's and diabetes and things like that. So I think we have like maybe one sentence in our entire paper just quick mentioning, oh, this could be a novel approach to how to cure or treat these diseases. But I mean, every scientist says that. I
Hmm.
mean, it's just somehow related, so we just kind of throw it in there to make it applicable. And it could very well be, I mean, like Parkin, that protein that I was mentioning, well, that's related to Parkinson's. That's the whole
Yeah.
idea behind that protein. So, yeah, there's definitely some molecules that we focus in on so much because they are incredibly important for these different diseases. So, if that's going to happen with our paper, probably not. In all honesty, but yeah, I mean, could something come out of it for sure?
Yeah.
So we'll see. It's
But
not going to be our
mostly,
lab because our lab just does molecular biology.
right. And it's mostly just making the community aware that, hey, this is a something that happens under these circumstances,
Yeah,
and it's pretty cool.
yeah, and it's kind of like CRISPR, right? I mean, nobody knew about
Hmm.
CRISPR for the longest time, and just a few years ago now we have CRISPR, and that came out of a molecular biology lab. They just figured out this mechanism, and they were just like, why don't we apply that
Whoa.
here? And they started doing it, and now we could technically use CRISPR to genetically modify so
People.
many other things. Yeah, I mean people for sure. So there's just there's so many possibilities. I mean you can jump through the ranks of that kind of scientific process for sure.
Hmm.
But those are incredibly low odds. I mean that won the Nobel Prize too, CRISPR. So
Right. Well, still very cool and awesome to be recognized like that.
yeah, yeah
A
it
lot of
is.
hard work paid off.
Yeah, yeah it did. Finally, I'm still spending like 9-10 hours in the lab. So now I'm working on my actual like dissertation project. So
Right.
that's been a pain in the ass. In
I
a
can
good
imagine.
way. It's just a lot of work.
Hmm.
Yeah. So that's the news from the science
Well,
world.
yeah, we'll have to share the link.
I will, and I'm sure. I mean, I mean, no joke. Just that title, and then like the abstract. It's just it's
Yeah,
so molecular biology focused that it's gonna be yeah, it's gonna be a challenge. We'll just put it that way.
it's not a bedtime story, folks.
No, or maybe it is.
Maybe it is
Yeah.
if you put it on audio and someone read it.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, that's a good
Here, we
idea.
report that acute reduction in mitochondrial translation fidelity causes ubiquitination of the inner mitochondrial membrane. Yeah. Could easily be. I love how researchers get so excited about their research, and it's like no, but they never seem to realize that no one gives a flying
Right.
fuck
Except
about
for
your
the people in
research.
their particular field.
Exactly. And even some of those people don't give a
Yeah.
shit. It's
Yeah.
so funny to me. I noticed this actually when I was in one of my classes recently that when the researchers are giving these lectures, like actual lectures, they're not presentations of their research, they're just lectures. There's two things that happen. One is that as they're going through the lecture, they're showing like data and stuff because we're in a graduate level. So it's not just like diagrams, like they're actually showing the data and like showing this is how we discovered this. But then they always mention like the lab name and like the authors and all that. And no one cares. No one cares. Like you can say, I don't know, Boyman et al. Discovered this, and then, or Roger et al. Discovered this, or Natalie, it's just, but none of the students care. We always tune you out when you say that. It's just so frustrating. It's like, why not just give the information and not add all these like disclaimers? And then the second thing is that at the very end of every lecture, most of them end up having like several slides where they just, for no reason, has nothing to do with the lecture. They just talk about their research. They're just like, and we're currently working on this. And it's just like,
how does that tie in?
It doesn't
and
at
why,
all.
Why do they want to tell you about it? Because they think you care, or they think like...
Yes. I mean, they think that we care, one, and two, which is fine. And sometimes, sure, like it's interesting, but they think that their research is so interesting. They just don't have a concept of like, no one gives a shit. It's like their wife at home, like, do not talk to me about that shit.
Yeah, they have to
keep it at work, and that's why they stay at work till like 7 p.m. because they're just trying to be around people that they can talk about this stuff with.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's an interesting phenomenon. It's really frustrating though sometimes.
What's the ETA until you're done, or do you know exactly when that might be?
It just
varies.
It's going to be probably like 2 years. I don't know.
Yeah.
Who knows?
We'll see.
Yeah, PhD is always a bitch. I'm never doing another one. Sure. I can tell you that much.
Oh, really?
It's another beast compared to like a master's. I thought the master's program, it just goes by, and you fit so much stuff into a 2-year period, and you learn so much. But at the end, like you're getting to like, even at the end of the first year, you're like, wow, that flew by, but I did a lot. Mm-hmm. And then you get to the end of your 2 years, you're like, okay, great. I graduated with my master's. With a PhD, I mean, you feel like you're in this like nebulous world of just like constantly doing stuff and you're getting nowhere. And then you're like, fuck, another year went by.
It's been 7 years.
Yeah, that's actually when they kick you out of the program. 7 years.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Wow. I can't imagine.
Yeah. It's not fun sometimes. It can be pretty stressful.
Yeah. Well, it'll pay off in the end.
I don't know.
Hopefully. That's the hope. So far, it's progressing well.
Yeah. So far, it's progressing well.
Yeah. Just got to live in the moment,
Yeah, live in the moment. That's good advice.
Don't plan anything. Just live, man.
Yeah. Did you see the podcast with JRE where he had that woman on talking about plastics? So he had a doctor on who a PhD talking about phthalates. So this might actually be an interesting public service announcement out there for anybody who hasn't watched that podcast, which is pretty interesting. It's only like an hour and a half. She's an older professor, but she did a lot of her research on phthalates, which are essentially just molecules that apparently disrupt our sex hormones, talking about testosterone and estrogen, but they have a potent effect when we aren't even born yet. So if they affect us when we're still growing in utero and whatnot, they can lead to like effects for the rest of our lives. So as in like penis size decreases, like drastically decreases. We produce a lot less testosterone throughout our life. Testosterone levels are like cut in half, something like that. Like really, really, really drastic effects on our sexual health, which of course affects, it's not just sexual health, it's affecting our entire body. And it affects women just as much as it affects men, just obviously different ways. So these phthalates are found in plastics. And they're
Great.
especially in heated plastic. So one thing that she said, out of anything, do not heat anything in your microwave. Do not heat anything in your microwave in a plastic container, or use. Try to avoid using as many like edible, stuff that you eat that are plastic.
Yeah.
But she said, like, just light covering or something like meat in the aisle or whatever that has a saran wrap or whatever. Like
Yeah.
that's fine. But if it's
I'm
stuff,
wrecked then.
yeah.
If that's not fine, I'm done.
But if it's other foods that are only contained in plastics and whatnot, she said that all those contain phthalates, and as an adult they still affect you. But the great thing is, the one positive note is that as an adult, if you stop using plastics within about a few months, you get all that stuff out of your system and you go back to
Hmm.
where you should be. But if you're a mother or a father and the kid is still in utero, that is the point. You have to stop so that the development cycle can work effectively. I thought it was really, really
Wow.
interesting, and she has actually a really great sense of humor, because you know how Joe is. So
Right.
they're talking about like taint and like all kinds of stuff, and like the scrotum size and all that, and he's just like he's laughing, and then
Can't
she's
handle it.
laughing and stuff. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's
Wow.
it's a pretty good
What
episode.
a nightmare.
It's
Well,
fascinating though. Like, her research is really fascinating. I mean, it's a lot of it is associative, but she's done stuff in rats as well, where they've actively like kept every condition the same, and then they just apply phthalates, and the exact same thing happens.
hmm,
So, I mean, most likely it's happening. So
man.
just a PSA out there.
Yeah, that's definitely good to know. My God.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did see a recent JRE. I mean, not the whole thing, but this guy Dave Smith was recently on,
That's the most like
who
generic name in the world.
it really is.
I have
He's
no
been on a
idea.
couple times, and he's a comedian as well, I believe. But he's been huge in like the libertarian,
Oh, okay.
not movement, or just he's a big libertarian. And he always has a lot of really interesting and slightly different perspectives on us getting out of Afghanistan, or you know the war in Syria, or COVID, whatever it is. And it's always a really great listen where Joe is actually really engaged, and it
Hmm.
tends to go a lot longer because of
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
um, and just a really smart guy. So I highly recommend listening, maybe even to the previous one with him, because he does a really good job of breaking down what libertarianism is, and you know just his views on it, and where it started, and just a super funny guy as well. So it's just a lot. It's very easy to listen to and laugh as well. So that's another recent one that came on. But I don't even know how to tie in cellular stuff to this, but I've been seeing a lot of videos about fake natty vids. Fake natty, which means you're not natural, but you claim to be.
Okay. Yeah. For some reason, I thought you were talking about like a channel or a person. I thought there was
No,
somebody called that, but I couldn't
there
remember.
might be, but it's just I don't know. Ever since I joined a gym again this year, and I've been going a lot recently, and just trying to get back into getting a good routine for the gym. And there's so many people on YouTube where you can get a lot of great information on particular workouts that you can do for parts of the body. And it's been cool to revisit that side of it, and see people who um, are clearly just like influencer, like I don't know, like ultra shredded guys who are just like, if you do this, if you do that, and then this is what I eat on a daily thing. And it's just like, and then there's the guys that are, more sort of normal body types with a lot of good information as well, but also are like trying to debunk these influencers as fake natties.
Hmm.
And there's a guy on YouTube called Philion who does
I
a really
know.
funny job about that. Um, but he attacks your hero sometimes, Mike O'Hearn.
Oh yeah, Mike O'Hearn, who is
All natty.
often termed Mike O'Tren, which, if nobody knows, trenbolone is is a steroid.
That guy is truly. I've just become uh, aware of this gentleman, and my God, just hilarious. I guess he claims that he's all natural.
Yeah, he does.
I
He
think
does.
he's in his 50s,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
the dude is just
Like
like
monstrous, an absolute monster.
truly.
He has the physique of a god. Not like an Adonis, like a regular human being with a
Yeah,
fantastic physique. He literally has a
it is
physique of a
insane.
god. Yeah.
It isn't. I mean, he's been, and it's been that way since like the 80s,
Yeah.
pretty much
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
him.
Yeah.
So I mean, I give him credit. Like he's definitely working his ass off, but
Sure. Yeah.
to he's committed. And but to say that he's all natural, I think, is a stretch. Would you not agree?
I would be inclined to
At
agree.
52 years old.
Yeah, I would be inclined to agree.
Oh, it's pretty hilarious. And like his videos, like it's just insane. Just the level of vanity this guy has of him just like coming in on horseback.
Yeah.
Like and it's like this is not a joke. This is me like being dead serious because I'm
Yeah.
that guy. I'm
Yeah.
cool. So
Yeah.
that whole world of YouTube has sucked me in, just watching like funny videos and then like video. I've always liked the videos of like the strongmen competition just because it's just so preposterous, like
Yeah.
the stuff that they do.
Hmm.
And I don't know if they're tested like in the strongman world for
I don't know.
steroids or
Yeah, I don't
not,
know.
but yeah, it's just interesting to get into that. And a guy that I've really liked listening to is Dorian Yates, who was former Mr. Olympia, and obviously was, very open about doing steroids back in the '90s, and he just seems to be way down to earth now, and gives a lot of really good advice that I've used lately. You know, but there's just so many different channels out there now.
Seriously.
It's just hilarious. But yeah, just been trying to get back into the gym a little bit more and do things that change it up a little bit.
Yeah, the fake natty thing has been going around for the last like decade or something. It's a constant battle, but of late it's gotten pretty bad because you, like you pointed out, I mean, you have these like fitness influencers who are really shredded, and they're like, I don't know, some of them are like 19 years old, 18 years old, and they have like incredible physiques, and it's just, and then they're like transformation, it's like a year and a half, like they were really skinny, and then a year and a half they got like this
Hmm.
incredible physique.
Like
It's just
40
like,
pounds of muscle.
yeah, exactly. And they look like 10 years older because
Right.
they have like such a stocky like
And their
frame to them,
face
but they're
changes.
shredded, yeah, and they got like chiseled jawline and all that stuff. And it's just like, come on, dude, get your head out of your ass. Like, there's
I
no
know.
way that this is without steroids. Like, it's
I
just
know. I
no
just
way.
wish there was a guy, and I guess that Rich Piana guy was pretty much like open and honest about,
Yeah.
like I've been doing steroids and I'm always going to do them, and that's ultimately what did him in, I guess. But yeah, I just wish people were more honest about stuff like that. because it's like, yeah, if you want to do it, that's fine. Like, do it, but don't give people this false reality.
I think it's because of the sponsorships that they have. I'm sure they're really
Yeah,
lucrative, you know. And
yeah,
if they admitted that they took steroids, the sponsors would probably have to drop them for legal reasons or whatever it might be. Yeah, Simian Panda is another example of a guy who's just absolutely yoked, and has claimed that he's not on steroids. Or some of them will sometimes kind of circumvent
creatine, bruh.
things. Yeah,
Creatine.
yeah, that's exactly it. Like sometimes they'll say like, "Okay, guys, I'm coming clean finally. I take creatine," or some bullshit or something that's legal, but it's like
Right.
that's kind of fringe, like SARMs,
Hmm.
for example, or like different pro hormones, which are
I take
the
Mr. Hyde.
yeah, yeah. I take pre-workout, and that's how. Yeah, I mean some of these like pro hormones though. A pro hormone is literally a hormone molecule, and it has
Hmm.
a tail that's on it, and all the body has to do is cleave that tail, and suddenly you've got the hormone, right? So the problem with that is that some of these pro hormones are really like they're really strong, really powerful. So that's some of these pro hormones actually are legal. Like you can get them and you can inject them and all that stuff, and nobody's gonna bat an eye. So some of these influencers will like have actually admitted to the legal thing. Oh yeah, I take pro hormones or whatever it might be. It's like, come on, just quit bullshitting. Like you're
I know.
taking the steroids. Just come clean.
Doesn't it
It's
seem like
ridiculous.
99% of people using steroids, the risk outweighs the reward? And then, like, that 1% who is like, bodybuilders like Fit Pro, whatever, or influencers with millions of followers, they're the only ones like, I'm getting millions of dollars. Maybe it's worth the risk if my lifestyle changes so dramatically because I'm using them in a positive way. Whereas for the majority of the people using steroids, it's like, what's the reward here other than like you look good for yourself and like 10 other people who see you? Like, your long-term risk is much higher, I would feel.
Yeah, we're not entirely certain on the risks of steroids. I mean, uh, plenty of people will say all that stuff, but then is they don't actually like end up coming forward with all great evidence. Like there's because it's not like researchers can study it very well. They can't,
Yeah,
because it's
right.
illegal. So it's hard to study. So sometimes you do based off of like what people tell you, and then there's like confidentiality and like that kind of stuff. So sometimes you can get some information out of that. Um, do I think that taking mass amounts of a hormone, any hormone, is a great idea? No, I mean I definitely don't. Um,
Hmm.
but it's tough to say. It's tough to say definitively. But you're right. And actually, speaking to that, I remember back at ECU when I was going to the gymnasium there
Hmm.
at the rec center. A friend of mine who will remain nameless for the
Offered you a hit of a
anonymity.
steroid.
Yeah, I got a hit of it. I smoked it. uh, no, he was telling me that I mean he or she
No,
or they,
were they now?
someone I'm not gonna
Please don't use gendered language. Have you seen
because
that video?
no,
Oh my
and
god.
I don't want to.
No, you don't. It's insane. But yeah, go on.
They he was saying I didn't want to like out who it might be,
Well, now we know.
but I've just eliminated. I don't even know. I would say half the population, but
52%.
apparently that's not the case anymore. So we'll just say I just eliminated, yeah, like 52% of the population. Anyway, yeah, he was telling me that he had buddies. They weren't like really close friends or
Access.
anything. That they, so he was natural or is natural. I know that for a fact. But some of his friends were not. So they were on steroids. I didn't find out, like, some of these guys, I'd been, I'd see them in the gym and whatnot. This
Hmm.
is in the time, this is when I was like, what, 23, 24, 25. This is the time when I'm still in this stage of life where I I have a hard time just like having conversations with people, especially guys. It's like everybody just walks around with like big lat syndrome, and they're
Yep.
constantly in this dick swinging contest without actually saying
Yeah.
that they're in a dick swinging
No eye
contest.
contact.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, exactly. No icon. Hey, bro, you using that? Like you like drop your voice
Yeah,
like two
exactly.
octaves just to be like more intimidating and stuff. It's just
Still there,
like,
bro. 2 more sets.
yeah,
Ugh.
yeah. You don't mind if I work in?
If you can handle it, bro, go ahead.
Yeah, if you can handle it. I can take some of these weights off for you. Dude. No joke like that.
Uh,
Those are the kinds of conversations we used to have. But so anyway, I actually worked out not with them but around them many many times for years, and some of them turned out to be on steroids, and I never knew that because they were so fucking skinny. They were just like,
really?
they would take I mean, these guys were on programs that made no sense
Oh
whatsoever.
no.
um, and I'm sure their nutrition was absolute trash. But
Right.
yeah, I mean, some of them were. I mean, one guy was definitely. I mean, you could tell he was
Right.
huge and was on steroids and whatnot. But like, I don't know, maybe three or four other guys that my friend knew. Uh, I was shocked. He was like, "Yeah, they've been taking stuff for over a year now," and I'm just like, "Are you kidding me? I have not noticed the
I
difference
bet
at all."
that's I bet that's a lot of people on steroids. Like as a novice guy, you just take it and you're like, I'm just gonna take it and like work out occasionally and like it's just gonna happen. But you actually have to work out hard to get results A, but then B to benefit from the steroid use, you have to really bust your ass, I would
Yeah.
imagine.
Yeah, well, there's good evidence that steroids alone will lead
Will
to
do something.
significant muscle mass, but the